What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. After spending the last several days revisiting the entire Toy Story franchise in preparation for Toy Story 5, it's finally time to rank and review every Toy Story property that I watched. Now, before we begin, I want to make one thing very clear. This is one of the most consistent franchises I've ever seen. Almost all the entries from top to bottom of this list are enjoyable, and when it comes to theatrical movies, I genuinely don't think any of them are bad. In fact, every theatrical Toy Story film ranges from good to absolutely incredible. Also, quick note, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, both the direct-to-video movie and television series, are unranked here because they're not available on Disney Plus when I did this marathon. Hopefully, someday soon, I will get a chance to check them out, and of course that means that someday Disney will delist them, but that's probably not going to happen. With that out of the way, coming in last place are the 3 Toy Story-themed Pixar popcorn shorts. Look, they're fine for what they are, but they're incredibly short and don't really leave much of an impact. They're more like quick gags or, honestly, post-credit scenes. I got a couple laughs out of them, but compared to everything else in this franchise, they simply don't have any substance. I mean, this is what you think of when you think of watching a short. That's what it is. Next up is the entire Forky Asks a Question series. The series is exactly what the title promises. Forky asks questions, and other characters answer them. Some episodes are genuinely funny, especially thanks to Tony Hale's performance as Forky, but the quality varies quite a bit from episode to episode. We do, however, get a Betty White cameo or more of her, so that's a giant plus. Look, they're harmless and entertaining, but not something I'm probably ever going to revisit. At number 12 is Lamp Life, and this is really the number 1 short in terms of actually affecting the main story. What it does is it fills in the gap for us on what happened to Bo Peep between Toy Story 2 and 4. It's charming, funny, and fills in some of the missing pieces of the story. The problem is that it's really over before it begins, and for me personally, Bo Peep is not one of those characters that I need to see a ton more of. But for what it is, it's nice, and it's a nice companion piece to Toy Story 4. At number 11 is Small Fry. This one's a really fun premise, actually, with Buzz getting trapped at a fast food restaurant while a kid's meal toy version of him takes his place. It's funny, of course, moves quickly, and delivers some great comedy. It's a solid short that reminds you why Buzz is such a fun character, and really why the short format could work really well in this playground of toys. Coming in at number 10 is Partysaurus Rex. Let's be honest, this short belongs entirely to Rex, and as it should. Watching Rex become the king of the bath time is actually hilarious, and Wallace Shawn absolutely steals the show here. It's one of the funniest Toy Story shorts we get, and gives one of the franchise's supporting characters a chance to shine when he doesn't get it quite as much as he should. At number 9 is Hawaiian Vacation. This feels like the perfect reunion after Toy Story 3. It's certainly a special in that time frame. The toys are still adjusting to life with Bonnie, and the focus of Ken and Barbie creates some genuinely funny moments. It's sweet, entertaining, and captures the spirit of the franchise quite well. Breaking into the top 8 is Toy Story of Terror. This Halloween special was much better than I expected. It mixes comedy, suspense, and mystery surprisingly well, while also feeling like a Toy Story adventure. Jessie gets a lot of great material here, and the story does a fantastic job balancing family-friendly scares while keeping the franchise's trademark humor. At the number 7 spot is Toy Story That Time Forgot. This special deserves a lot more love than it gets. The Battlesaurus are really fun concept, and the story fully explores what happens when toys don't realize they are toys. Reptilius Maximus ends up being one of the most memorable characters introduced outside of the main films. It's creative, funny, and surprisingly thoughtful. At number 6, and we finally hit our theatrical releases, this is Lightyear. And I know this movie has been pretty divisive since its release, but honestly, I enjoyed it. Is it perfect? No. But I thought the animation was gorgeous, of course. The action sequences are exciting, and the science fiction adventure worked for me. I also liked seeing a different interpretation of Buzz's lore. I don't mind the recast of Buzz to Chris Evans since it is an inspiration of the toy and the movie. It ends up being another Chris Evans movie, however, where his character is out of time, which I just thought was kind of funny. The third act of the film is admittedly weak. The whole Zurg is the older Buzz is an odd choice, and then something even as recent as Toy Story 5 continues to be retcon. Of course, with that said, it's not on the same level as the Toy Story classics, but I think it's a better movie than people give it credit for. Cracking the top 5 is Toy Story 4. This is where things get really difficult because every remaining entry is genuinely great, including this movie, and I will stand by that. Toy Story 4 had the impossible task of following what many consider the perfect ending in Toy Story 3. While I don't think it reaches the emotional height of its predecessor, it still tells a meaningful story about purpose, change, and moving on. Forky is genuinely hilarious, the animation is stunning, of course, and the ending with Woody gives a fitting new chapter to his character. At number 4 is the movie that started it all, Toy Story. It's hard to overstate how important this film is. Not only did it launch one of the greatest animated franchises ever, but it changed animation entirely. Even after all these years, Woody and Buzz's rivalry remains incredibly entertaining, and the heart of the story still works beautifully. It certainly has that early MCU charm, though, where the cast hasn't gotten too big yet. It's a fantastic core characters, and they really get their time to have some moments. While I wouldn't change later installations expanding the cast of this series, you can't help but feel the charm when you go back to watch this one. Outside of that, as we mentioned, it's a groundbreaking classic, and it is absolutely perfect. It also should speak to just how great these next 3 movies are. As an honorable mention, definitely go check out the Toy Story 30 Years and Beyond special on Disney+. It's a mini documentary of sorts of the franchise, and it's an absolutely fantastic watch. Speaking of this idea of how unprecedented this franchise has been, or the first movie at the very least, it certainly touches on that. I had planned on turning it on in the background while I was doing this video, but I did turn it on and I couldn't keep my eyes off it, so we had to watch that first. Now to the top 3. Taking the bronze medal is Toy Story 2. This movie somehow accomplished what seemed impossible. It matched and in some ways surpassed the original. Jesse's backstory remains one of the most emotional moments in Pixar history. The comedy is fantastic and the adventure is bigger without losing the heart that made the first film special. I was really going back and forth on where to rank this, if I should put it ahead of the first film, and then I rewatched the last 30 minutes of the movie, and there were multiple moments where I truly laughed out loud. That alone gave it the edge. This is one of the greatest animated sequels, if not one of the greatest sequels ever made. My runner-up is Toy Story 5, and I know that ranking might surprise some people, but I absolutely love this movie. The central conflict between toys and technology feels relevant and meaningful, and I thought the filmmakers did an excellent job exploring both sides of the debate, not making one side the villain. We get more emotional moments with Jesse, which nearly rivals the first. The humor worked, and it felt like a worthy continuation of the franchise. I also don't mind that some of the legacy characters were just kind of along for the ride. Anytime I get the chance to see a new version of Tom Hanks' Woody and Tim Allen's Buzz, you can sign me up every time, no matter how big or how small their roles are. Look, I walked out of the theater genuinely impressed and excited by what they had accomplished, and don't groan, but I cannot wait for the next one. And that brings me to the number 1 spot. that is Toy Story 3. For me, this is the gold standard. This movie perfectly balances comedy, adventure, suspense, and emotion. The daycare storyline is fantastic. Lotso is one of Pixar's best villains, and the ending remains one of the most emotional conclusions in animation or just movie history. The final scenes with Andy saying goodbye to his toys hits just as hard as it did when the movie came out. It's not only my favorite Toy Story movie, it's one of my favorite animated, or I keep saying it, just films, period, ever made. It's absolutely perfect. But that's my ranking of the entire Toy Story franchise. Remember, just because something landed lower on this list doesn't mean I don't like it. This franchise is remarkably consistent, and even the entries near the bottom still have some very enjoyable moments. Also, remember, it's not the correct list. It's just my list, and I would love to hear yours, your Toy Story ranking. On a personal note, I had an absolute blast rewatching all of these movies and seeing Toy Story 5 in theaters with my family, and I hope to get to another Toy Story movie soon so we can do it all again. We thank you for watching today's episode, and now that you've got some time, you can go refill that popcorn bucket.